Samina Imam. On Christmas Eve of 2014, as the world buzzed with holiday excitement, 34-year-old Samina Imam, a marketing manager for Costco in Cardiff, South Wales, was getting ready for the festivities. She had plans to visit her family in Essex the day after Christmas, but first she was looking forward to a special date that evening. Before meeting her date, Samina made a quick stop at Costco to pick up a bottle of wine. Little did she know, this would be the last time anyone would see her. As Christmas came and went without Samina returning home to visit her family, her absence grew more concerning. Her friends and family reached out to her repeatedly, their worry mounting with each passing hour. Days went by, yet there was still no sign of Samina. Where had she gone? What could explain her sudden disappearance? Cardiff, located in South Wales on the southeastern coast of the country, is the capital of Wales. Cardiff transforms into a winter wonderland during Christmas. The city is adorned with twinkling lights, charming Christmas markets pop up, and festive activities abound. For history buffs, Cardiff Castle stands tall, painting pictures of knights and ancient nobility within its walls. Wandering through Cardiff Market is a feast for the senses, with scents of freshly baked bread and spices filling the air, drawing you into a world of local flavors and crafts. Yet, Cardiff isn't just about its history of market. It's alive with laughter, chats in the streets, and the genuine Welsh hospitality that fills its pubs and restaurants. From museums to the Wales Millennium Centre, Cardiff offers diverse experiences for everyone. But back on Christmas 2014, though the city gleamed under the warm glow of a million lights, unsettling shadows lurked beneath the surface. Before we continue, we want to remind you that only a small percentage of people who watch our videos are actually subscribed. So if you enjoy our content, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Now, let's move on with the video. Samina Imam's life began in 1980 in the UK, nurtured by her loving father, Imam Dean, and a mother whose name remains cherished within the family. Her Pakistani heritage was a vibrant thread that wove through her life, enriching her with traditions and values. Samina's youth blossomed within the walls of Loxford High School in 1998, where she emerged as a bright and ambitious young woman. As a 34-year-old, Samina found herself in Coventry, where she took on the role of marketing manager at Costco. While details of her personal life were scarce, her presence was deeply valued, bringing joy to her family and colleagues. In 2014, amidst the bustling aisles of Costco, Samina's path crossed with 41-year-old Roger Cooper, a warehouse manager whose 2 decades of experience in logistics had kept him rooted in the same store. Their encounter marked the beginning of a new chapter in Samina's life, one filled with the promise of fresh beginnings. Everything seemed to be falling into place for Samina. Her days were filled with ease and contentment. However, on the eve of Christmas in 2014, an unforeseen event shattered her world. As Samina eagerly awaited her date with Roger on Christmas Eve, she had also made special arrangements to visit her family. In particular, she planned to spend time with her ailing mother after the holiday festivities. On the eve of Christmas 2014, Roger pledged to spend the holidays with Samina, leading her to book a lavish 2-night stay at the Malmaison Hotel in Birmingham. With a $500 paid, she carefully arranged for meals to be served in their room, setting the stage for what was supposed to be a romantic Christmas celebration. As the clock struck 4 p.m. on Christmas Eve, Samina concluded her shift at the store. Little did she know that the journey ahead would deviate from the plans she had envisioned. After a brief stop at a liquor store to get a bottle of champagne, she began on her fateful drive toward the Malmaison Hotel. On her way there, she had a final conversation with her sister, during which she inquired about their mother's health. Samina assured her sister that she would be arriving at their parents' home on Boxing Day, December 26, 2014, eager to partake in the family's Christmas celebrations in Essex. This conversation underscored Semina's commitment to her family and her eagerness to be with them during the festive season. However, her unexplained disappearance following this conversation left her family deeply concerned. What was more concerning was the fact that Simeon even texted her friends wishing them a Merry Christmas, but then suddenly ceased to reply. The abrupt halt in communication, coupled with Simeon's failure to fulfill her planned visit, added to the distress surrounding her disappearance. This led to the police being alerted by Semina's family on December 26, 2014. The investigative saga commenced swiftly, and authorities were trying to do everything to get to the bottom of this crime. Media outlets, both local and social, rallied the community, amplifying the search efforts to locate her. A missing persons report was filed, prompting authorities to step in and join the search. The police talked to Semina's co-workers at the Costco in Coventry, who provided a crucial detail. One retail worker informed police that he last saw her departing the store around 4 p.m. on December 24th. It was the last time she was ever seen alive. Surveillance footage provided glimpses into Simeon's last known movements, leaving her workplace, purchasing champagne, and departing in her car. Despite these visual clues, her precise location remained elusive. The West Midlands Police Department turned to cell tower data, using it to approximate Simeon's whereabouts. On December 30, 2014, investigators traced Simeon's movements to Leicester, precisely to the residence of David Cooper, Roger's brother, on Christmas Eve at 5 p.m. At the same time, Roger's phone records showed that he was also in the area. It seemed unlikely that it was a coincidence they were both there at the exact same time, raising questions about why they were there together. As the investigation got more complicated, they wanted to know who Semina was going to meet on Christmas Eve. Their attention zeroed in on Roger Cooper, the person she was supposed to spend the evening and the next night with. Roger Cooper was brought in for questioning on January 1, 2015. Now he was the main person the investigators were looking at closely. While they were questioning Roger for details, a new piece of information emerged. Remember how Semina's last mobile signal led to David Cooper's location? Investigators considered interviewing David Cooper at the same time. While probing David Cooper's possible involvement, the investigators couldn't ignore a nagging question. If Semina and Roger had already booked hotel rooms, why were they at David's house? This added layer of mystery intensified the suspicions surrounding the case. Before diving deeper into the story, understanding the Cooper brothers' backgrounds becomes important. Their lives and connections might be essential in understanding the mystery surrounding Semina's case. Let's start with Simeon's Christmas Eve date, Roger Cooper. He was born in Leicester around 1973 and excelled as a manager at the Birmingham Costco warehouse. He was admired for his leadership. However, beyond this public role, Roger led a secretive life known only to a few. Juggling multiple affairs, including one with Semina Imam and another unnamed Costco employee, he maintained a long-term relationship with his partner, Mira Chavda. Shockingly, Semina was unaware of his long-term commitment. This hidden reality exposed a more complicated and problematic side to Roger than anyone had realized. Roger's carefully constructed facade began to crumble when Simeon discovered the shocking truth. Learning through a co-worker about Roger's other relationships shattered her trust as it revealed a web of deceit and hidden liaisons. Now, turning our attention to Roger's brother, 39-year-old David Cooper, he added a surprising twist to the unfolding mystery. David, a former soldier, managed a cafe and worked as a doorman. Intriguingly, Simeon's last cell phone signal led investigators to David's address in Leicester. The bond between Roger and David extended beyond family. They shared a close-knit relationship. The brothers shared a mutual love for Star Wars, often using cryptic phrases from the movies to communicate with each other, either referring to the lore of the movies or events from their daily lives. That being said, it's here that the real puzzle surfaces. Did David share any connection with her? These questions loomed large over the investigation, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the ties between Semina, Roger, and now his brother David. Let's look at the dynamics of Semina Imam and Roger Cooper's relationship. Was it genuine, or was Roger merely using her? At first glance, Roger and Semina appeared to be just another couple, sharing laughter, secrets, and what seemed like genuine affection. Their connection was filled with playful banter and affectionate moments, a facade hiding the grim reality beneath the surface. Little did Semina know that she was just another woman in Roger's life. Despite his long-term commitment to his partner Mira, Roger found comfort in clandestine moments with Semina. At least, that's what Semina was made to believe. Initially, she didn't know that he was having a third relationship with another woman in the same store. Their relationship was shrouded in secrecy due to strict company policies against workplace relationships. Yet their bond grew stronger, blurring the lines between right and wrong, until Semina found herself hopelessly entangled. She saw a future with Roger, a peaceful life together, but there was a catch. He was already entangled in multiple relationships. Despite the red flags, Semina clung to the hope that Roger would leave his family for her. As their relationship deepened, Semina's desperation for a settled life intensified. She confronted Roger, issuing an ultimatum towards the end of 2014, divorce his wife or lose her forever. The facade of their perfect relationship shattered when Semina discovered Roger's infidelity, another lover hidden in the shadows of their workplace. Enraged and betrayed, she threatened to expose their affair to his wife and their employer. Roger, adept at manipulation, managed to soothe Semina's anger, convincing her of his loyalty and promising to file for divorce after the holidays. He also said they'd go away on Christmas Eve for 2 nights. It was at the very beginning of this ill-fated trip that Semina disappeared. Now, diving into the investigation, the police had their sights set firmly on Roger Cooper and were also wondering about the involvement of his brother David. On January 4, 2015, Semina's car was found in Luton, about 65 miles away from Coventry. Her handbags, suitcases, and items she brought were missing. The lack of fingerprints made investigators suspicious, but there was another interesting detail. The driver's seat was adjusted for someone taller than Semina, possibly over 6 feet. This suggested that someone else used the car after her shopping trip. Additional evidence that the police found that pointed their suspicions towards the brothers involved multiple automatic number plate recognition hits tracking their vehicles between Coventry and Leicester. A Bellini bottle purchased by Miss Imam on Christmas Eve in Coventry was discovered in David's home fridge. While Roger was Semina's date, the presence of the bottle in David's house raises the question, how did the bottle end up at David's house? These details added complexity to the investigation. During the investigation, the brothers, David and Roger, firmly denied any involvement in the crime, but their text messages told a different story. They used cryptic phrases from the movies to communicate secretly. Phrases like Death Star complete, stay on target, and you are expected, Vader, hinted at a hidden plan. One particularly puzzling French message roughly translates to "there's no point, no score. The window of opportunity is closed," which caught attention. The message hinted at a closed opportunity or a missed chance. The detectives interpreted their Star Wars messages as alluding to Miss Imam's abduction and murder. While the majority of their exchanges appeared to center around Star Wars, another concerning detail caught attention: David Cooper's eBay purchase history. He had recently purchased chloroform, a substance well known for use to knock people out, but which also can be lethal in larger doses. When coupled with Semina's missing car and the various intriguing details, the plot thickened. After all the clues and circumstantial evidence pointed towards the Cooper brothers, they were arrested on suspicion of murder on January 7th, 20th, and 14, and brought in for questioning. During the interrogation of the Cooper brothers, subtle yet crucial disparities began to emerge in their narratives. Roger Cooper presented a detailed and emotionally charged account of his last encounter with Semenya, a level of detail and emotion that the police found excessive. Recognizing David Cooper as the more vulnerable of the two, investigators intensified their pressure on him. This strategic approach, when applied effectively, can yield significant results, particularly when the person under scrutiny remains unaware of their alleged accomplice's statement. While he initially did try to mislead them, eventually, the police learned what actually happened on that fateful Christmas Eve. Simeon had set off with Roger, believing they were headed to the Malmaison Hotel in Birmingham. Without Simeon's knowledge, Roger was secretly directing their journey away from Birmingham, heading instead to a hidden location in Leicester, Roger's brother, David Cooper's residence. As they arrived at David's house at Hughenden Drive around 5 p.m. on December 24th, Semenya, unaware of her upcoming tragedy, greeted Roger's brother with genuine warmth. In a sudden and terrifying move, David and Roger launched themselves at Semenya. The attack was horrifying. Semenya's legs trembled, fear gripping her as she pleaded for help. She fought back, struggling against them, but David, with a cloth soaked in chloroform, covered her mouth and nose, silencing her cries until she couldn't breathe anymore. She faded away around 6:25 p.m., her efforts in vain against the overwhelming force. After the heinous act, Roger heartlessly headed back to Coventry, planning to spend Christmas Eve with his unsuspecting family. He left her body and her car with David, but it would take detectives some more time to figure out exactly what he had done with them. But David astonishingly confessed to assisting his brother in the horrendous act of killing Semenya. The detectives learned that Semenya tragically passed away due to chloroform toxicity. Investigators discovered compelling evidence in David's eBay purchase history, indicating a purchase of 200 ml of chloroform for AV12, which he alleged never arrived. Further inquiries revealed David's movements. Retrieving Simeon's BMW from Coventry on Boxing Day and later abandoning it in Luton, he meticulously wiped away any fingerprints and DNA from the vehicle using a cleaning agent, methodically covering his tracks. Later, he also reveals how he tried to hide Semenya's lifeless body, the callous act of killing someone, and then referring to them as this thing, speaks volumes about the perpetrator's lack of empathy and respect for human life. Such an act speaks to a disturbing level of dehumanization, where the victim was stripped of their individuality and reduced to a mere object. This detached and callous language suggests that the act of killing was not just devoid of remorse, but potentially motivated by a deep-seated hatred or an animosity towards the victim. The dehumanizing language serves to further distance the perpetrator from the gravity of their actions, making it easier for them to justify and rationalize their behavior. David's continued refusal to disclose the location of Simeon's body cast a long shadow of suspicion over him. His fabricated stories about others taking the body away only raise further questions. The fabricated stories appear to be a desperate attempt to distance himself from the crime and deflect suspicion. Such behavior is characteristic of individuals who have something to hide, further fueling the flames of doubt surrounding their innocence. While David initially misled the authorities about Simeon's whereabouts, a crucial piece of evidence emerged that ultimately led to the discovery of the truth. A friend of David's, prompted by his arrest, came forward and revealed that David had entrusted him with a set of keys, including one that belonged to an allotment he owned in Leicester. The police, acting swiftly on this information, descended upon the allotment, carrying the weight of hope and determination. On January 16, 2015, the long-held silence surrounding Simeon's disappearance was shattered, leaving hearts broken. Upon arrival at David's allotment, an unsettling sight greeted them. A sheet of tarpaulin lay crumpled on the ground, with a suspicious mound of earth beneath it. Footprints, fresh and clear, marked the surrounding area. As they carefully excavated the soil, the grim reality unfolded. Semenya Imam's body was found in Leicester, owned by David Cooper, a seemingly ordinary structure now at the center of a disturbing discovery. The haphazard manner in which the body was concealed spoke volumes about the perpetrator's state of mind. It was a stark contrast to the meticulous planning seemingly evident in the earliest stages of the crime. The haste and lack of proper concealment suggested that their focus was solely on the act itself, with little thought given to evading detection or ensuring a successful cover-up. This botched attempt ultimately led to their undoing and exposed the truth to the light of justice. Most disturbingly, Samina's body was found wrapped in cling film and a sleeping bag that belonged to David Cooper, serving as concrete evidence of his involvement in this tragic crime. Adding to the grimness was a sign hanging on the shed, its message blunt. "Don't wind me up. I'm running out of places to hide the bodies." The West Midlands police investigation was determined and thorough. They followed every lead carefully, leaving no stone unturned, and pieced together the events leading to Samina's tragic end. What made this ordeal particularly unsettling wasn't only the discovery of Samina's remains. The sign, meant as a joke, became a chilling confession, revealing the darkness lurking beneath ordinary surfaces. It was as if the perpetrator was challenging the law enforcement itself. Post-mortem examinations confirmed that the Cardiff-based shop worker met her demise due to chloroform. Additionally, a peculiar mix of metallic elements, antimony, cadmium, tin, mercury, and arsenic, was likely administered to Samina Imam in a liquid form. During the 8-week trial, the chilling truth emerged. Roger Cooper carefully planned to silence Samina Imam for months, fearing she would expose their affair. The brothers, 41-year-old Roger and 39-year-old David Cooper, remained composed during their trial, avoiding eye contact as the jury unanimously convicted them at Birmingham Crown Court. Later, on October 20, 2015, during the trial, Roger made a shocking admission, revealing that a seemingly puzzling message, "You are expected, Vader," was actually a coded reference to Miss Imam. He claimed it was part of a surveillance effort to determine if she was involved with someone else. But the truth was, the brothers' first attempt to harm Samina Imam took place way before in December at Soil Hill Premier Inn. Samina was a regular guest and planned to spend the night there following a Christmas party. Under the guise of a surprise, Roger had instructed Samina to meet him at the hotel, claiming to have booked a room for them. However, the surprise was a lie. No room had been booked, and Roger wasn't planning to be there. Meanwhile, David, Roger's brother, lurked in a rented car parked in the hotel's car park, prepared to abduct Samina. To communicate their plan, the brothers relied on cryptic messages coded in Star Wars references like "Death Star Complete" and "Stay on Target." Stay on target. "You are expected, Vader." However, on that day, the taxi stopped right at the entrance, which didn't give David a chance to get close to Samina. The plan failed, and Samina safely entered the hotel. Frustrated, David sent a message to his brother in broken French, which translated to, "There's no point, no score." The window of opportunity is closed. Samina, just 34 and one of Roger's lovers, was later overpowered on Christmas Eve of 2014 at David Cooper's home, meeting a tragic death by chloroform. Despite their calm facade and planning, justice caught up with the brothers. Arrested under suspicion a week before Simeon's body was discovered, they couldn't escape the truth uncovered by post-mortem tests. Their arrest and subsequent conviction by Judge Thomas on October 21, 2015, led to a life sentence for each with a minimum of 30 years of prison time. While sentencing the Cooper brothers, the killers, for life, Judge Thomas told the siblings, "The use of poison in a case such as this demonstrates a cold-blooded intention to kill, regardless of the consequences. You work together hand in glove in planning and carrying out the murder of a joyful and bubbly young woman, brutally betrayed by a man she loved and his brother." DCI Caroline Marsh, senior investigating officer, shared her views on this case outside court. She said, "I would say this is the most callous offense I've ever investigated. Most murders that occur are spontaneous events driven by anger or jealousy, whereas in this case, What we uncovered was weeks of planning to kill Semenya and a really unusual cause of death. We rarely see chloroform homicides. It's a mystery to the investigation why David Cooper would do something like this for his brother, an extreme act to kill a woman that he hardly knew. Their cryptic messages and meticulous planning failed in the face of justice, ensuring they'll spend all of their remaining Christmases behind bars, serving their deserved punishment. The anguish of losing Semina in such cruel circumstances was overwhelming for the family. The statement released by Semina's younger brother, Imran Imam, reflected the profound impact of her loss. He mourned not only the loss of his sister, but also the absence of her guidance and support during challenging times. Imran expressed the torment of contemplating Semina's final moments and the pain of not being able to seek her counsel anymore. The reminders of her absence were constant, with everyday triggers evoking memories that intensified their grief. This made it even more challenging to come to terms with their loss. The family's sentiments echoed a collective sense of shock, sorrow, and fear as they grappled with the reality of Semina's untimely and tragic demise, leaving an irreparable void in their lives. As we close this chapter on the tragedy of Semina Imam, it's impossible not to be shaken by the sheer senselessness of it all. Roger had countless opportunities to avoid this irreversible path. He could have chosen honesty, transparency, or even simply ending the relationship. Instead, he and his brother set in motion a calculated and cruel course of action that led to the loss of a vibrant life. This case serves as a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences that can arise when personal desires are placed above basic human decency. Let it stand as a cautionary tale, urging us all to choose compassion and integrity over expediency and self-interest. May Simeon's memory inspire us to uphold the values of honesty, respect, and accountability, so that such a tragedy may never again harm an innocent soul. Moving on to the next case. Trevor Deely. Trevor Deely was an exceptionally jovial, neighborly, and technically gifted young man. His passion for computers and talent for mathematics were abruptly cut short by an unexplainable and untraceable disappearance in December of 2000. This left all who knew him, both in person and through the World Wide Web, searching for answers in a sea of evidence that only deepened the mystery. In an attempt to provide more substantial reasoning based on tangible evidence and careful analysis, this is an exploration of Trevor Deely's disappearance and its possible connection to shadowy figures in the area. Trevor was born on August 15, 1978, in Naas, County Kildare, Ireland, to parents Michael and Anne Deely. The youngest of 4 children, he grew up under the close guidance of his older brother Mark and sisters Michelle and Pamela. His soft-spoken yet infectious childhood demeanor made him a likable kid, and even as a teenager, Trevor developed an even-tempered personality, getting along with basically anyone and everyone. His older siblings were all athletic in school, participating in sports and competitions. Trevor was the odd man out, however, and instead flourished as an athlete of the mind, finding a love for arithmetic and sciences. These interests in numbers and tech, combined with problem-solving tendencies, inspired Trevor to tinker with computers and audio-visual systems. It developed into a hobby for Trevor, but never seemed like a viable career choice. He was confused about where to focus his studies after graduating high school, testing out the waters of business and economics at Waterford Institute of Technology. During this period, he worked part-time at the local supermarket, but never felt truly comfortable and dropped out after the first semester. Remembering that Trevor had a gift for troubleshooting, his sister Michelle recommended a series of computer lessons in Dublin. Trevor obliged and quickly discovered his calling in life. Michelle was quoted in the Irish Times saying about her brother's newfound talents, "He took it like a duck to water, like turning a key in a lock." Trevor loved the coursework and soon devoted all of his energy to computers. When he finished the schooling, he was immediately offered 3 separate job opportunities. Seeking professional advice, Trevor turned to his dad, who was also quoted in the Irish Times. "I said, 'Take the bank. Banks are safer than any of the others.' This would turn out to be quite an unsettling foreshadow for the upcoming tragedy." 7 months before the turn of the millennium, Trevor took a position at Bank of Ireland Asset Management by Leeson Street Bridge in Dublin. He worked for the IT department in an office with 10 other employees who all raved about his work ethic and enthusiasm. Trevor's manager, Dara Tracy, described him as the perfect employee who was reliable on the job, hungry for knowledge and friendly with everyone at the company. The same was true in his personal life, as Trevor became especially close with his elder brother Mark and his 2 lifelong last buddies, Glenn Cullen and Conleith Lunan. In addition, Trevor had met a girl in his last summer in Dublin and traveled up to Anchorage, Alaska to see her only a month before this mystery began. Despite the bevy of cheers and positive relationships in Trevor's life, an unexpected, unforeseen darkness was on the horizon. During the holiday season of December 2000, Trevor's co-workers set up a company Christmas party at the Hilton Hotel in Dublin. The night was full of drinking and good vibes until early the next morning. At about 4 a.m., CCTV footage captured Trevor walking from the Bank of Ireland office towards his apartment in Ballsbridge, and this would soon prove to be the last sighting of Trevor Deely before his unexplainable disappearance. In May of 1999, Trevor Deely receives 3 job offers and decides to select an IT position at Bank of Ireland Asset Management on Wilton Terrace at the suggestion of his father. Trevor blends right into the working culture and forms healthy professional relationships with his peers. After the turn of the millennium, sometime in 2000, Trevor starts renting a flat on Serpentine Avenue, Sandy Mount, Dublin 4 in the Renoir complex. Along with him are 2 other female roommates, Niamh and Sarah. The trio maintain a conflict-free living situation throughout the year. Later that summer, Trevor meets a girl named Karen, who is visiting Ireland on a vacation from Anchorage, Alaska. She is only in Dublin for a short while, but Trevor feels a romantic connection. None of Trevor's friends nor family get a chance to meet Karen. On the 7th October in the same year, Mark Deely attends a GAA football match with Trevor in Castlebar, County Mayo. The brothers spend the day with a few additional friends, and Mark mentions it was at this moment that he saw Trevor as more than a sibling, but as a peer too. Mentioning, Trevor showed promise in his own life with both work and finances. It's the closest memory in their relationship, but was also proved to be the last. Sometime in the last couple weeks of November, Trevor and close friend Glenn Cullen have a conversation about Karen, the girl Trevor met in summertime. Glenn bets in passing that Trevor wouldn't go visit her in the States, to which Trevor retorts that he will. Nevertheless, he is soon added to Glenn's Aer Lingus discount beneficiary list and accesses a free flight from Ireland to Anchorage, Alaska. After stopping in Los Angeles, Trevor arrives in Alaska, where he intends to meet up with Karen. However, this point in the timeline is quite muddied in terms of what actually happened in Anchorage. Trevor's father, Michael, claims Trevor had more than one girl of interest in the States that he had met in Ireland, and claims that he found in Trevor's email a correspondence in which Trevor told one of the girls he was free for a few days and would come visit in person. The girl named Janie replied and said she would be busy during the specified dates, yet Trevor persisted and still made the trip. On the flip side, Trevor's brother Mark was confident the vacation wasn't out of the ordinary and was nothing more than a spree of relaxation that included a reconnection with his ex-girlfriend. A completely harmless coincidence. On Tuesday, December 5th, Trevor returns home from Alaska and hitches a bus back to the family home in Nice. His father only sees him in passing as he leaves for a work meeting. Meanwhile, an exhausted Trevor talks by the beautiful ice caps he witnessed. His mother encourages him to come home that weekend to tell them more about his recent trip, but Trevor says he plans to go Christmas shopping, so wouldn't be able to. The next day, Wednesday, December 6th, Trevor goes back to work at Bank of Ireland as normal. Sadly, abnormality strikes the very next day. At 4 p.m. on Thursday, December 7th, Trevor finishes work. According to Michael Dealey, he received a call from Trevor that late afternoon, during which he mentioned his apartment complex electricity was out. This meant Trevor was at his flat sometime after work on the day he disappeared. Later, in the early evening hours, Trevor also made a stop to his father's office to pick up prescription contact lenses sent by his brother, who was an optician. However, Michael Dealey was out in meetings during this time. Soon after, Trevor and a few friends hit up the Copper-Faced Jack's nightclub, where Trevor has the last known conversation with his father, Michael. At about 8:45 p.m., Trevor and the crew leave the club and go to nearby Hilton Hotel in Charlemagne Place, where the actual company Christmas party is being held. They enjoy a fancy dinner and live music. A couple of hours later, sometime between 10 and 11:30 p.m., Trevor receives another phone call, this time from best friend Glenn Cullen. Unfortunately, it's too noisy on Trevor's end for any clear communication. The friends end up playing phone tag the remainder of the night. In the small hours of Friday morning, December 8th, at about 2 a.m., Trevor and his friends leave the Hilton and arrive at Buck Whaley's on Leeson Street, another popular Dublin nightclub. The post-party festivities last around an hour and a half until 3:35 a.m. Trevor is captured on CCTV footage in front of his office's gate number 2 at Wilton Terrace. He has a brief conversation with a curious man wearing all black before heading into the office by himself. He thanks the building's security guard, Peter, for assisting him. It should be noted that the man wearing dark clothing has been seemingly waiting outside of Gate 1 for about 30 minutes prior to Trevor's arrival. At approximately 3:36 a.m., Trevor asks his co-worker, Carl Pender, if he's available for a quick cup of coffee. Carl says he's busy at the moment and asks Trevor to wait a moment or two. A minute later, at 3:37 a.m., further CCTV footage displays the same black-clothed man standing outside of Gate 2, this time with a second figure positioned next to him and a possible third person covered by shadows behind them. 10 minutes later, at around 3:50 a.m., Trevor finally shares a beverage with Carl. The recreational is short-lived, however, as Trevor is seen exiting the office at 4:03 a.m. through Gate 2, now holding an umbrella on CCTV video evidence. 2 minutes pass before Trevor calls his friend Glenn one final time, saying he'll call again later that day. This would be the last official point of contact Trevor makes with anyone specific. At 4:14 a.m., additional surveillance footage reveals Trevor walking past what was then an AIB bank on Haddington Road in the direction towards his Ballsbridge apartment. 30 seconds tick by and another passerby enters the frame. A man dressed in black, almost identical to the first shadowy figure from the Bank of Ireland's gateways. Other bystanders who were in the area at the time later recall seeing nothing out of the ordinary around. As he walks down the street out of view, it becomes the last known sighting of Trevor Dealey. At 9:30 a.m. the same morning, Trevor does not show up for work. No action is taken. On multiple occasions over the weekend days of December 9th to December 10th, Trevor's sister Michelle makes several phone calls to Trevor, each time ringing, but ending up on voicemail. Michelle later remarks that she wasn't worried at the time, and was pretty sure his cell phone was active each time. Suspicions finally arise on Monday, December 11th, when Bank of Ireland informs Trevor's parents of his continued absence from work. Michael and Anne Dealey then tell their older son, Mark, who immediately feels a strange discomfort in the atmosphere and drives straight to the family home in Naas. Meanwhile, Michael goes to Trevor's apartment but receives no answer, either in person or on the phone. Mark continues the investigation efforts and searches both the Copper-Faced Jack's nightclub and the Ballsbridge area. When no traces are found, Mark accompanies the friend Glenn Cullen back to Naas and reports Trevor missing to the Naas Garda station. A major manhunt breaks out the next day on December 12th, as the guard searches Trevor's flat and a sub-aqua team combs the nearby Grand Canal. Both efforts draw a blank. The searches continue into January 2000 and word, with flyers handed out to townsfolk and additional bodies of water inspected. Trevor's friend, Conleth Lunan, even pitches in as a CCTV expert and researches partial footage from the night of his disappearance, but still no evidence is unearthed. Around February or March of 2015, 14 years after the mystery started, the Irish Times released a special 3-part series detailing the Trevor Deely case. Later in 2015, journalist Donald McIntyre creates an associated documentary that withholds a never-before-seen image of CCTV video outside the Bank of Ireland, unreleased by the Gardaí. It highlights the second and third man cloaked in darkness that are outside the gate after Trevor enters the building, a fact unknown to the general public until this moment. In December 2016, investigators reignite Trevor's cold case with the newfound CCTV footage and send it off for specialists in the UK to decipher the forensics of Trevor's final moments. Just 4 months later, in April of 2017, a company in the United Kingdom concurs that the man in black followed Trevor by 30 seconds in the last CCTV shot. It's most likely the man in black outside of his office in the first few shots. These initial images are enhanced and reveal that Trevor did indeed speak to the shadowy figure before entering the Bank of Ireland on that fateful night, again giving the public a new clue. This is the last accurate lead uncovered in the Trevor Deely file to date. Like all missing person cases and most criminal investigations in general, the most sought-after evidence is potential footage from the locations in which these crimes or mysteries occurred. In the search for Trevor Deely, one of his close friends, Conleth Lunan, was able to use his videotech expertise and pull partial CCTV footage from both the Bank of Ireland offices and the AIB offices mere days before they were to be destroyed. These tapes captured Trevor's last known moments in the early morning hours of December 8th, after he leaves the Christmas festivities to pick up an umbrella in his office and return home. It should be noted, the footage jumps a couple of points, most likely for time-keeping concerns. The first part of the video displays a man dressed in dark clothing who arrives outside of the Bank of Ireland at 3:05 a.m. The footage then jumps to about 3:34 a.m. with the man still lingering about before exiting the frame to our left. It then shifts to a different angle, recording Trevor arrive at work at 3:35 a.m. At this moment, what is assumed to be the black-clothed man pops back into the shot and talks to Trevor for a moment, or two. Trevor then heads inside before the footage jumps again to 4:02 a.m., but we see Trevor walk back onto the street with his umbrella and the suspicious man nowhere to be seen. The final piece of tape then plays at 4:14 a.m., showing a man under an umbrella passed by the AIP building. This is later confirmed as Trevor Deely by his family. 30 seconds later, a man dressed in black walks in the same direction as Trevor. This figure is thought to be the man from earlier waiting around the two gateways and the man who spoke briefly with Trevor. To this day, he has never come forward to be eliminated from the inquiry, and until he does, he is still very much a suspect. Yet the mystery of this man and the CCTV footage in general does not stop there. After the tapes were digitally remastered, documentarian Donald McIntyre released a film in 2015 called Unsolved, in which he revealed screenshots of unreleased footage depicting Trevor and the man in black outside of Gate 2 after Trevor had left. However, a closer inspection in 2017 uncovered that the time code on this new screenshot is actually from the time period in between Trevor entering and exiting Bank of Ireland. Thus, neither this man on our right side and the man standing in the back are Trevor himself. Rather, these are two new separate figures who appear to be looking into the office complex. Knowing this information, the image becomes much more unsettling, as these men are hidden behind their dark clothing and shadows. When authorities reopened the case, they were able to track down the men on the right and in the back. These two individuals were cleared as co-workers of Trevor and quickly crossed off the list of suspects. However, while they were there at the offices at the same time that evening, standing in the frame like they were is still unknown, leaving the entire CCTV case point in a shroud of doubt. Trevor Deely's disappearance occurred just over 18 years ago, Yet, with almost 2 full decades of sleuthing, both professionals and amateurs have come up empty-handed, failing to secure hard evidence or expose truth beyond coincidental and circumstantial assumptions. Despite the inconclusiveness of it all, there are a few notions that make sense when peeling back the layers of this case. First and foremost, many followers of the disappearance immediately point to Trevor's unquestionable trip to Alaska, less than a week before his disappearance. To make such a long journey a third of the way across the world for a girl he briefly knew makes little sense. Alaska is a 9 hours flight that spans 9 time zones and offers little tourist value for a basic short-term visit. So, if the vacation was truly meant to rekindle a romantic spark, it was quite an extreme gesture considering Trevor only mentioned a girlfriend aspect of it in passing, mostly to his friends. Glenn Cullen remarked that he'd only heard of Trevor's love interest by word of mouth and never saw pictures of her or proof that she existed. The only possible physical identification was seen by Trevor's father through the email chain previously mentioned. However, the woman in the communication was called Janie, not Karen, and whether they were the same person or completely separate has not been clarified by investigators, nor has confirmation that a search was done of the email correspondence discovered by Michael between Trevor and Janie. The general consensus now is that there was no girl and that the stories about meeting college students from Anchorage was a cover-up for some other type of business or personal quest. Rural Alaska is a mystery in and of itself, and the number of potential activities kept a secret is too vast to go through, but could include any number of operations, such as money laundering, drug trafficking, or gang violence. How Trevor could ever be connected to such vices is both unknown and unlikely, but his expertise with computers and mathematics make him a useful person for any of these activities. In rebuttal, there is a little likelihood that Trevor was able to keep such multinational offenses under wraps from everyone and leave behind no traces. While he was proficient with computer systems, he had no history or record associating him with virtual crimes. He was an outgoing, friendly individual, and pursuing a woman he liked isn't unusual for a man of his age, especially considering the tickets were free. Mark Deely said in the Irish Times article that the trip to Anchorage was like any young adult attempting to find paradise, and Alaska was just a colder version of hotspots like Ibiza or Lanzarote. Trevor did seem flattered by the grand surroundings of Alaska ice caps in his short time spent with his mother after he returned, which is probably a genuine emotion rather than a cover for illicit activity. In the end, both the Deely family and investigators classified the Alaskan trip a red herring in the case, after both parties interrogated the girl in question and no leads were produced. Another popular hypothesis believes Trevor was killed that morning on the way home to his apartment by a ruthless Kremlin-based criminal, anonymous to everyone, but to guard officials. This theory originated from a tip given to Gardaí by an informant who claimed that Trevor had run in with a crumbling criminal who was shot and murdered before being dumped in a wooded area in West Dublin. The crumbling criminal had also been investigated for the unsolved murder of Sinead Kelly in June 1996. The criminal in question was never publicly identified due to legal reasons. Investigators said the informant himself had no motive for the crime, but didn't hold any serious weight with the tip, despite the fact that the crumbling criminals gang was running a drug and prostitution trade in the surrounding area of Trevor's disappearance at the time he was last seen. Nevertheless, Gardaí eventually took this information under consideration and dug up a 3-acre forest in the Chapel leasehold area to look for Trevor's remains. The secret crumbling criminal was eventually cleared after the informant's information was proven wrong, and no traces of Trevor were found in the excavation. Other theories focus on the black-clothed man from CCTV footage, offering a flurry of ideas that he could be a modernized version of the Men in Black conspiracy, and was at the offices that night to talk to Trevor about something supernatural he had witnessed, possibly during his time in Alaska. It would explain Trevor's subtle yet repeated fascination with the Alaskan atmosphere and why the man in black followed Trevor home. If the man in black did kidnap Trevor, it might back up the complete lack of physical DNA or evidence left behind. It should be noted that the Dealey family have heavily denounced this line of thought and does not consider it tangible. In more realistic terms, followers of the case have suggested Trevor was kidnapped and murdered by the crumbling gang that morning, but instead of being buried, he was thrown into a body of water. Gardaí officials have combed through countless rivers, ponds, and canals around the Dublin area, and again have found no clues related to Trevor. It's also peculiar that Trevor's sister, Michelle, called her brother's cell phone over the course of the weekend, in which Trevor was unknown to be missing, and the cellular emitted a series of rings rather than go straight to voicemail. This hints that the cell phone died before it was potentially destroyed, and either Trevor or his kidnapper had access to it for up to 48 hours past 4:15 a.m. on December 8, 2000. A case like Trevor Dinnie's with infinite pathways, but zero destinations is incredibly difficult to conclude. However, there are just enough holes in the profile to poke through with calculated observations. These anomalies, combined with the CCTV, leads us to believe that Trevor knew something he shouldn't have, was followed by people he shouldn't have known, and he realized it and was eventually taken away against his will. What exactly this information was, or who exactly the people it was connected to, is impossible to crack, but without a doubt, it probably centered around illegal practices of a criminal nature. It was the type of forbidden knowledge that led to him being hunted down, kidnapped, and murdered. The first big piece of this conclusion is the conflicting information given by Trevor himself, specifically the two-faced schedule he gave to both his parents and his friends. After returning from Alaska, he told his parents he wouldn't be coming back home to Nace the following weekend so that he could finish some Christmas shopping. At the time, he made plans with friends Glenn and Conleth to get drinks that weekend at Thomas Fletcher's Pub, a local bar in his hometown. While it could have been an honest mistake or intentional to avoid talking to his parents about Alaska, it kind of feels like Trevor wasn't telling the truth to either party. He might have had his own agenda over the weekend, maybe to take care of the issue at hand, and led both his friends and families astray. In fact, his absence at the pub was regarded as a normal occurrence by Glenn and Conleth, as neither felt worried or even bothered to contact Trevor when he never showed up for drinks. In addition, Trevor displayed a few moments of subtle nervous behavior after his return from Alaska. Besides mismanaging the information he gave up about his weekend plans, Trevor's actions the hours before his disappearance strike us as odd. For example, when Trevor walks up to Gate 2 at Bank of Ireland and speaks to the black-clothed man, he spends little time engaging with him and enters the building soaking wet, seemingly in a hurry to get home. However, instead of grabbing the umbrella and departing, Trevor asked the night shift employee Carl Pender to share a cup of tea. When Carl asked for a few moments to finish his task, Trevor didn't leave. Instead, he logged onto his computer and performed unknown actions, as if waiting for something to happen and pass the time. Then, when Carl was available, the two shared hot beverages and conversed about nothing in particular for 10 minutes before Trevor finally left. This entire exchange is very odd. Why spark up conversations with a colleague at work on a Friday night at almost 4 a.m? And when you find they are busy, why get on the computer and mess around as if it's a dire meeting only to chit-chat aimlessly for a few minutes? What did he do on the computer, and what did he and Carl discuss? Carl does not remember the details, but is certain it was not an emergency or dire conversation, and that Trevor was also in a stable mindset and not drunk like people assume after the evening of drinks and parties. The entire 25-minute episode seemed as if Trevor had something bothering him, most likely stemming from the sudden appearance of the man in black outside waiting for him. There are also a few pieces of the puzzle that were either ignored or poorly investigated altogether, with very little information being released by officials afterwards. First, the electricity being out at Trevor's apartment complex on the day he disappeared feels more than coincidental. He called in maintenance to fix the issue earlier in the day, and it seems that they do by the time he arrives home from work, but why or how? The flat's lost electricity is never explained and possibly never investigated in the first place. It would be fascinating to hear from other people living in the complex at that time, to hear if they remember the power going out, or if they saw any suspicious figures hanging around the building's electrical panel in the days prior. Not only that, but the apartment in general was never completely ruled out as being the last place Trevor visited. Guard officials believed he never went home that night, but we have no recorded information about the state of Trevor's flat, and if there were signs of a struggle, an intentional leave, or DNA forensics. Secondly, Gardet claimed they searched Trevor's computer and email for any evidence and came up empty-handed. However, analyzing audiovisual systems was not as thorough in the year 2000 as it is today, and another debrief of Trevor's internet history could prove useful if released to the public. Travers was a technical mastermind anyway, so it is possible he hid any sequence out of reach to the local government shoddy computer searches. Third, it's infuriating to think police let Trevor's last known bit of communication get deleted without second thoughts. Trevor was confirmed to have called his friend Glenn at 4:05 a.m., and according to Glenn, left a voicemail that said little besides that he'd call again soon to talk and catch up on recent events. Investigators thought this to be a routine message, and after Glenn agreed, there was nothing out of the ordinary to his ears. Gardet allowed Glenn to delete the message. This is gross negligence by police in missing person cases. Any bit of communication left by the victim needs to be preserved. Even if it was a 5-second hello and goodbye, you never know what could be extracted from the background. Every piece of evidence deserves its due diligence and to be put under a microscope. So, while it probably had no effect on the search for Trevor, its absence from public access and 100% clarity leaves a tiny hole in the case. Finally, we must address the two supposed colleagues of Trevor who appear in the newly released CCTV footage screenshots. Authorities were quick to identify the man on the right and the man on the back as co-workers, but never shared any details beyond this fact other than that they were cleared of any wrongdoing. So, who were they exactly? What are their names? What are they also doing at work at 3:40 in the morning? Did they accompany Trevor from the Christmas party back to work to make sure he arrived safely? If so, why do they stand so strangely in the frame, positioned in a bizarre manner as if they are waiting and looking at Trevor with a bit of shadowy intimidation? And if they were waiting, why did they leave prematurely? Did they know the first man? Did they confront him, or are they able to identify the mysterious figure? It's mind-boggling to think that they were ruled out despite appearing in the most mysterious question-peddling piece of evidence, which is missing critical segments in the first place. When did the second and third subjects leave? Where does the first man go? Do they converse? This footage is sadly unavailable and could have been destroyed from the time of origin. It's quite possible the two colleagues were interviewed and provided alibis and explanations, but without documented proof, it's hard to accept such leniency. In the end, taking into consideration Bank, and asked Trevor if they could talk before he went inside. Office with Carl. Meanwhile, Trevor's fellow colleagues stopped by to check on his well-being, and when the man in black told them Trevor had gone inside for a while, the co-workers decided to leave not long thereafter. Trevor then came back outside to an abandoned gate too, and went about his business ignorant to the black cloth man following behind him discreetly. This man or his potential associates confronted Trevor again at his flat since his roommates were away on holiday. There were probably other people with the man back at the apartment as backup, and were probably responsible for the electrical outage at the complex. When Trevor insisted his innocence, the man realized it was too late for such a plea, and Trevor had to go before he revealed what he possibly knew. Trevor was then kidnapped, kept alive somewhere for a period of time before a homicide, and eventually disposed of in a place where he wouldn't be recovered, probably out of the country or in the surrounding areas. Like all unsolved cases, Trevor Deliz is truly one left up in the air. This conclusion takes into account all of the investigation's strengths and weaknesses and attempts to build the most likely, if not fully conclusive answer. Since the restored CCTV footage was released in 2015 and the false alarm search at the chapel's Odd Woods, no new leads have been unearthed. However, Guardian officials did release a statement in December of 2018 that they would be going back to unidentified human remains still in storage to utilize breakthrough DNA technology and test the pieces for any trace of Trevor. If anything, it provides a newfound hope for the Dealey family, who have over the years refused to consider conspiracies and simply ask that Trevor's fate be solved. Whether that means a body or not, they just want something concrete. Sister Michelle Dealey was quoted in the Irish Times saying, "I don't believe people vanish. It makes no sense to me. It actually starts to hurt your brain when you think about it." She, along with her parents, siblings, and Trevor's friends, just want closure and for the 18 years of nightmares to finally end. It's ordinary people like us who can take on these challenges and help combat the growing number of missing persons cases. We wouldn't report on this if we didn't believe it could remind the world, spread awareness, and potentially uncover a new clue or lead that might bring us closer to the truth. It's crucial not to forget that before this case went cold, Trevor was a human being, a man with a future in technology, community, teamwork, and resourcefulness. He was infectiously friendly, with a positive attitude that left a lasting impression on his peers, always spreading good. His dedication to problem-solving and compassion touched countless lives, and we hope that impact will continue to influence others soon. Until then, the search for answers continues as we push for clarity and fight to uncover the truth behind the disappearance of Trevor Dealey and the mystery of the men in the shadows. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing cold cases with us. If you found the video fascinating, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Cold Case Mystique for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Your support helps us bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any cases you'd like us to cover next. See you in the next video, and remember, the search for truth never stops.